This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics has this new series. It's now called the Living Asset. And living assets, of course, is almost the ultimate definition of the human being. We are assets, we are living, we are alive, and we need to be respected as such. Respectonomics is a word that builds respect, and the living asset is the human being. This episode that we're dealing with today is a life message, and it works on the subject of virtual failing. And in our studio, we have Sarah Benton, who's my co-host, and Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, that is I, and I am your voice of Respectonomics. And I always say democratically or ubiquitously or peripatetically, there's a good word, good morning to everybody. And I don't know, maybe it's a nighttime, but wherever you are, hello.
Hello.
And we're talking about virtual failing, which sounds like, what on the earth are you talking about? And the answer is, actually, there's no such thing as virtual failing. If you fail, you fail. There's no such thing as virtual failing. I don't know how you could ever say, well, I just failed virtually. No, you either fail or you succeed, or you don't fail, is maybe another way of putting it. But the point I'm getting to here is this. I want to discuss, Sarah, the business of this virtual imaging, the what do they call it now? The virtual, what's it called? Not the virtual screen, but the virtual image. What's it called? Virtual.
I
It's
don't.
on. I'm struggling with the word virtual reality. That's what I was looking for. The
Okay.
word I was looking, virtual reality. So with that rather clumsy beginning, let me just go through what I've got in mind here this morning, or we have in mind. And that is, we rely a lot on this thing called virtual reality. And I'm putting down the gavel and saying, well, actually, if it's not real, it is not real. There's no such thing as virtual. And if you ever want to prove what is real, then just bring in your five senses. If your five senses can actually correlate with another person, so we think in terms of seeing and hearing and tasting and smelling and what's the other one? Touching. Yeah, if we can do those five things, we have a deal. We have a human relationship. And I'm making this point because the virtual concept actually doesn't work. It lacks, what would you call it? First of all, it denies the use of the five senses. And one of the things about our five senses is once you start letting one go, it doesn't take too long before it infringes upon the others. So we're given these five senses, we need to keep them active and working together. And virtual is done on screen, it's done by telephone, it's done by remote access. There are numerous ways in which it happens. And the clarion call we're making is to rejuvenate and to restore the ability for one human being to be in contact with another. That's it. Because when you're in contact with another human being, that is when the five senses have their chance of being activated and coming into exactly what they're meant to do. And then when you have this kind of neural connection, when you have two people joined together, my classic example, a lot of people go to parties, particularly over New Year's and this kind of thing. You go to a party and you say to somebody, how was the party? It was fantastic. Great. What did you talk about? Haven't got a clue. Because the reason you haven't got a clue, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's because the enjoyment was neural. We pick up on all these signals through our five senses that we then respond to one another. And it's a fabulous asset. But when we take away that asset, we create a liability. And that liability is when we get into a virtual imaging, we lose spontaneity, we lose that ability to be reflexive. We do not have the same memories that we have when we are communicating one-on-one, and we don't have the recollection or the recall. And what it amounts to is that virtual fails the test for which the human being was meant to be. We are designed, we are gregarious, we are meant to be together. And we should explore that. And the last thing I want to say about it is this. If you are virtual, you don't get the capacity to be what I call mind mapping. Mind mapping, when two people get together, and Sarah, you and I do this all the time, and I do it with the Dignity Trust, which is the group behind Respectonomics, the team. One of the things I've noticed is when we're meeting and when we're talking and so on, we always seem to come up with new ideas.
Mm,
It's like a breeding ground. It's, and somebody will say, "Oh, I thought of something," and it's right off the cuff. Sometimes it seems irrelevant, sometimes it seems random, but it builds not only the content of the conversation, it builds the relationship. And those relationships and that degree of content does not occur when we engage in a virtual arrangement.
mm,
So I am saying in life, let us make a particular point of being in physical connection with another human being. And it may be as straightforward as good morning. It may be, to quote your late uncle, and let's remember this line. It's not a line, it's not even an approach. It's one of the most welcome things we can do to say to another individual, another human being, face to face, person to person, to say, "How is your day going?"
wonderful.
Do you have any thoughts on the virtual and the real? Does it hit you particularly?
I think there's a myriad of ways that it can swing.
Hmm.
From the vantage point, obviously, I agree with your points. Having said that, in addition, I do think there are places, depending how you're defining virtual. So, for example, virtual is allowing us the opportunity to do this.
Right,
However, at the same time, we're using words, we're having dialogue, we're using
right,
communication, we
right.
are using eye contact as best as that we
Yeah,
can. So although we're not physically present, we're
right.
present in terms of each other's thoughts and commentary and discussion and conversation. So I think depending how you're defining virtual, there are assets to virtual that have allowed us, like I think about COVID, where there were some virtual components that did afford us the opportunity to stay connected as long as you did this type of work.
Mm. I think
So
you're right. To me, what you've just said is that virtual and reality aren't really in opposition necessarily to one another. They are probably more like railway tracks. But
yes, there are certainly, you think about like virtual reality
yeah,
means it's not really
no,
real,
yeah,
whereas we're using a virtual capacity or tool
yeah,
or resource in order for this dialogue or
yeah.
conversation to be real. So, like I say, I think it just depends how you're defining virtual or virtual reality.
I think, Sarah, the listeners need to hear one truth and nothing but the truth.
Okay,
And that is when you and I met, which was actually at what would you call it? Not a wake, what's
celebration
the
of life.
celebration like? And you and I didn't even know one another.
Mhm.
And I believe you have it on record that I asked you if you would be my fellow podcaster. I think I asked you that within about 3 or 33 seconds of us meeting.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's my point.
Right.
That that connectivity
Human
and
connection.
human connection. It's absolutely clear that the virtual allows us to continue with it in different ways and so
It's a
on.
conduit
Yeah, it's a
versus
conduit.
being our
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we as a human being group understand that the difference between the virtual and the realistic and the
Correct.
touch feeling. And I'm just saying, let's bring our five senses to the table.
Absolutely.
Okay. And on that one, I will say, oh, you can say it today. Come on.
We rest our case.
We rest our case. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Jeremy.